Have you ever looked up at the night sky, those endless points of light, and wondered whether anyone was looking back? Every generation has tried to answer that question in its own language. Today, we call them UFOs. But thousands of years ago, our ancestors saw chariots of fire, angels in radiant wheels, and heavenly beings that shimmered like lightning. And for the mystics of Judaism, the prophets, the visionaries, the Kabbalists, those encounters weren't science fiction. They were revelations. So let's dive into the intersection of Judaism, UFOs, and Kabbalah, where ancient mysticism meets the modern imagination, and where visions of the divine blur with encounters from beyond the stars. From the first verses of Genesis, Judaism is already cosmic in scale. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It's plural, heavens, not one tidy layer, but many realms, vast and unknown. Ancient rabbis describe 7 heavens, stacked one upon another, like translucent veils, each inhabited, each radiant. The uppermost, called Aravot, was said to contain the throne of glory itself, surrounded by living creatures of fire and eyes. Sound familiar? Because when modern audiences read the book of Ezekiel, they see something that looks, well, suspiciously like a close encounter. Think about it. Ezekiel, exiled by the river Chebar in Babylon, looks up one night and he sees it. A great cloud and fire enfolding itself, and a brightness all around. Within it, he sees 4 living beings, each with 4 faces, 4 wings, and gleaming metal bodies. And beneath them, wheels within wheels, enormous, spinning, and, as the text says, full of eyes all around. If you describe that to a modern UFO investigator, they might reach for a sketch pad. For ancient Israel, though, this wasn't an alien craft. It was called the Merkavah, the divine chariot, God's mobile throne, powered by living creatures. Later mystics would spend centuries meditating on that image, trying to ascend in vision or spirit, to see the throne for themselves. They called it Merkavah mysticism, the earliest form of Jewish mysticism, long before Kabbalah. But let's be honest, it sounds an awful lot like technology. Metal, motion, light, flight. So what was Ezekiel describing? Maybe both. Maybe the prophet experienced something so overwhelming, so luminous, that only the language of motion and machinery could contain it. And that language still speaks to us today. Because when we see something unexplainable in the sky, well, we too reach for the metaphors of our time. They said chariot, we say craft. But the mystery, the awe, is the same. You see, long before Ezekiel, there was Enoch, the man who walked with God and was not, for God took him. The book of Enoch, one of Judaism's most otherworldly texts, describes an ascent into heaven unlike anything else in Scripture. Enoch is taken up by shining beings. He's shown the architecture of the cosmos, the storehouses of wind, the courses of the stars, the prisons of angels. And then comes the story that would echo for millennia, the descent of the Watchers, angels who come down to earth and teach humanity forbidden knowledge, metallurgy, cosmetics, weaponry. They mate with human women. Their hybrid offspring, the Nephilim, become the giants of old. Now, modern readers, especially in the age of ancient aliens, have just pounced on that story. And was this, they ask, a memory of extraterrestrial contact? Were the Watchers actually beings from another world? The Jewish mystics would say no, but not because they lacked imagination. For them, these were cosmic metaphors, glimpses into the structure of heaven itself and the dangers of crossing divine boundaries. Enoch becomes the first to ascend and return, a prototype for the mystic. He's transformed into Metatron, the highest of the angels, the scribe of heaven. Enoch is Judaism's first astronaut. He's a mortal who leaves the earth, journeys among the stars, and returns changed forever. When the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in the caves of Qumran, scholars found something astonishing. Hymns and liturgies, not meant for any earthly temple, but for the heavenly one. Among them was a text called the Songs of the Sabbath Sacrifice. It's a series of ecstatic hymns describing the worship of the angels in the heavenly palaces. The community who sang them believed they could join in that celestial chorus, aligning their voices with the beings of light. The scrolls also contain visions of radiant thrones, wheels of fire, and a hierarchy of celestial beings almost identical to Ezekiel's. The Essenes, they were the sect that likely wrote them, were obsessed with purity, light, and heavenly knowledge. They practiced visionary meditation and may have sought direct contact with the divine realm. So, were they describing the unseen or witnessing something real? Well, that depends on your definition of real. For them, the border between heaven and earth was porous, thin enough that the divine could break through at any moment. And that, right there, is the same tension that drives our modern UFO fascinations. Is what we see out there, or is it in here? Is it technology from the stars, or consciousness breaking through the veil? Centuries later, in medieval Spain and Safed or Tzfat, Jewish mysticism crystallized into something breathtaking: Kabbalah. The Kabbalists weren't interested in UFOs. They were interested in the structure of reality itself. They described God not as a person in the sky, but as an infinite, unknowable essence, Ein Sof, from which everything emanates. From that infinite flow came 10 spheres, the Sephirot, each a dimension of divine energy, wisdom, understanding, beauty, power, mercy, foundation, kingship. Together, they formed a living map of creation, what later mystics called the Tree of Life. Now, think about that for a moment. 10 dimensions, each emanating light and energy, each interlinked, a multi-dimensional universe. Centuries before modern physics ever imagined string theory. Kabbalists like Rabbi Moshe Cordovero and the Ari, as he was called, Yitzhak Luria, taught that God continuously creates and destroys worlds. Infinite cycles of cosmic birth and collapse. One of their texts, called Etz Chaim, states this:
There is no number to the worlds that the Holy One, blessed be He, creates and destroys.
Does that sound familiar? It's the language of the multiverse. Ancient mysticism predicting what science is only now daring to describe. So while today's astronomers look through telescopes to find exoplanets, the Kabbalists used meditation to explore inner worlds, dimensions of being where matter and spirit blur into one. Now, here's where it gets truly fascinating. Did Jewish thinkers actually believe in life beyond Earth? The short answer is yes. At least some of them did. In the Talmud, Avodah Zarah 3b, the rabbis declare that God
travels through 18,000 worlds.
18,000? That's not poetic exaggeration. It's a window into a cosmic imagination. The Midrash Rabbah adds another layer.
God created and destroyed many worlds before creating this one.
The universe, they said, was a series of divine experiments. Creations rising, falling, reborn. Then, centuries later, Rabbi Pinchas Eliyahu of Vilna, in his Sefer HaBrit, written around 1797, speculated that the stars might be other worlds like ours, inhabited by beings who serve the Creator in their own way. That's a rabbi talking about extraterrestrial life before telescopes could even prove that other galaxies existed. The idea wasn't controversial either, because Judaism never assumed that humanity was the center of creation. God's presence fills all worlds, visible and invisible. So why shouldn't there be other forms of life, other reflections of the divine, scattered among the stars? Bottom line, all these ancient visions, Ezekiel's fiery chariot, Enoch's celestial voyage, the Essenes' angelic songs, the Kabbalists' tree of life, point to one enduring truth. We have always sensed that reality is larger than it appears. When people see strange lights in the sky today, when they feel they've met beings beyond comprehension, maybe they're tapping into the same archetype that stirred our ancestors by the river Chebar. The symbols have changed. The wonder has not. In our next episode, we'll explore how Kabbalah merges with modern UFO mythology, how the idea of other inhabited worlds became not a threat to faith, but an expansion of it, and what Jewish mysticism can teach us about cosmic consciousness in the age of artificial intelligence and interstellar discovery. Until then, keep your eyes on the heavens and your heart open to mystery.